All right, it's that time of year, preseason predictions, so let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, here they come, the preseason predictions. Once again, these are only preseason predictions. Don't take it like a hard hot dog named Richard. It's only a preseason prediction. These are for fun. Looking at you last year, Ryan Blaney fans. Ryan Blaney fans were vicious last year. Like, I can't believe you didn't put him in the top 8. It's preseason predictions. You got to take some risks. You got to have some fun with it. With that being said, let's get into them. So if you look at the way the playoffs have trended, you've had more winners recently than you have had in the past, whereas people would focus in previous seasons on having a good season. Now there's a much bigger focus on winning one race, because winning one race gets you into the playoffs, and that's going to be better for you overall going forward for getting sponsors and things like that, because you're like, hey, we made the playoffs last year, so the focus now is winning. It's better to be good for one weekend than it is to be good for the first 26. So if you can just have one good weekend in the first 26, it's better for you overall than having a nice, good, consistent season. The way this format, which a lot of people don't like, including myself, is set up, that's just the way it is. This is the game that's played. So with that being said, you can't really go by who has the best average finish and things like that. You got to go with who can win at what races, and this is how I'm going to pick my 16. And the first pick on that list, I'm just going to go with the number 1 car. We're going to go with Ross Chastain. 1 win last season, 19th in points, and he had a 14.94 average finish with 14 top 10s. Add to that 6 top 5s, and the second half of his season was much better than the first half of his season. Obviously, could have been a much better season if he got that win in the first half, but of course the win coming in the second half. So I've got him solidly locked into the 16. Next on the list, going to go with the no-brainer here, Kyle Larson. Do I really need to say anything about Kyle Larson? Don't think I will, because we're just going to save some time here. Just kidding. 6 wins, 18 top 10s, and he ends up 6th in points with 15 top 5s, actually, which was pretty impressive. The 5 DNFs. 5 DNFs would be the thing I would worry about, though, with Kyle Larson. And possibly the one did not start that chapped NASCAR's ass pretty bad, but apparently NASCAR's fixed that for this season coming up. After him, got the 6 car of Brad Keselowski, the RFK man. 1 win, 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and 3 DNFs last season. And I expect more of the same this season. RFK just continues to keep building. Then after him, we got the man who just recently won the Clash at Bowman Gray, Chase Elliott, where he had 1 win last season. Still had a great season overall with 11 top 5s, 19 top 10s, and only 2 DNFs. So I definitely have Chase continuing to keep doing what he's doing. You know what, much like Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, you know what you got going on there. Next, we got the number 11 Kings Hawaiian driver, the law firm of James, Dennis, Allen, and Hamlin. You know what he can do, but let's look at the stats from last season. 3 wins, 12 top 5s, 18 top 10s, and 8th in the final points, only 4 DNFs. A lot of people think the lawsuit will affect his focus. I'm not one of those people. I think James Dennis Allen Hamlin is going to continue doing what he's been doing for pretty much his whole career, and I do think he'll be in the playoffs this year. Now on to the 12 car of Ryan Blaney. Mea culpa, Ryan Blaney fans. Sorry about last season. I missed it. You guys were right. I was wrong. It's all good. 3 wins, 12 top 5s, 18 top 10s, and 2nd in points. And he did all of that with 6 DNFs, which is super, super impressive. If he can clean up the DNFs, I think he can have a much better season. Obviously, 2 years ago, he won the championship. Last year, his teammate Joey Logano won the championship, so no big shocker that we've got Ryan Blaney in the playoffs. With 1 win and 15 top 10s, wasn't in the playoffs last season, but I do expect Chris Buescher to be in the playoffs this season. So with 1 win and 15 top 10s and only 2 DNFs, I think you can consistently count on him more years than not being in the playoffs. Then the guy in the 20 car that gets talked about the least, but on the racetrack he does the most. Let's take a look at these stats here. 3 wins, 15 top 5s, 23 top 10s. I think that led the whole series, and he finished up 5th in points, 6 DNFs. Anything you can say about his season, maybe clean up the 6 DNFs. That is a little bit of a high number, but other than that, absolutely flawless season for Christopher Bell. I feel like eventually he's going to get the thing done, but it's such a weird, chaotic format to win a championship as it currently stands. It's hard to say, who can win a championship or not, but he's definitely going to be in the playoffs, I would say. Also, on a side note, while we're on the topic, we got to stop with the DeWalt and half interstate batteries car. It doesn't work. It's ugly. It's bad to look at. Do something different. Now on to the 22 car, Joey Logano, the reigning defending champion. Obviously, I'm going to have him in the playoffs. He's the reigning defending series champion. You either like him or you don't. I think he's good for the sport. He's really great outside of the race car, regardless of what people think about him inside the race car. So I'm definitely penciling him into the playoffs. In the 24 car, next man in the playoffs is going to be Fast Willie V. William Byron just released a beautiful, gorgeous Flames Exalta paint scheme, so he'll have that going forward. And I definitely expect him to be in the playoffs. More years than not, but last year he showed once again what he can do. 3 wins, 21 top 10s, only 4 DNFs, finished third in points, and 13 top 5s. So much like Christopher Bell, showing that he is one of those drivers that you have to keep an eye on every single season. Want to skip a few now, we're all the way down to the 45 of Tyler Reddick. Definitely, I have him penciled into the playoffs. He's another one of those young, up-and-coming, almost generational talents. Last year, 3 wins, 12 top 5s, 21 top 10s, and only 4 DNFs. The resume speaks for itself. He wins races. He's always going to be in the playoffs, more years than not, I should say. The only caveat with the 45 and the 23 and the 11 is going to be the lawsuit, and we can also say the same thing about Front Row Motorsports as well, of course. And the other guy that I've got locked in is going to be the 48 of Alex Bowman. Trevor on the hot seat, but last year got 1 win, 8 top 5s, 17 top 10s, and 3 DNFs. A win, 8 top 5s, and 17 top 10s, and people are constantly talking about this guy can't drive or he's on the hot seat. I don't get it, but it is what it is. It's the world we live in, but I've definitely got him in the playoffs next season. A win, 8 top 5s, and 17 top 10s, and people are constantly talking about this guy can't drive or he's on the hot seat. I don't get it, but it is what it is. It's the world we live in, but I've definitely got him in the playoffs next season, or this season coming up. So those are kind of my 12. No duh, they're going to be in the playoffs, but every single year from 16 to 12, there is some drivers that get in there that it's hard to predict. So here is my best attempt to predict what other drivers will be in there probably before they get eliminated in the first round, because it's just kind of the way it works out. Daniel Suarez overachieved last season, though. So let's start with him. Danny Suarez with 1 win and 4 top 5s and 9 top 10s last season to only 2 DNFs, finished 12th in points. Those numbers look really good on paper, but he was completely erratic. He was either really fast or the car was way off last season, and that is something that they're going to have to sort of get that consistency in the 99 car, but I do have him probably winning a race early on in the season and locking into the playoffs. Sticking with Trackhouse, we're going to go right on over to the 88 car of SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen. I do have him winning a road course, so I have him in the playoffs, and I think he's probably going to win Rookie of the Year as well by getting that win. However, don't sleep on Riley Herbst, because Riley Herbst is an amazing plate car driver, plate track driver. 2311 brings really fast race cars to super speedways. So I could also see Riley Herbst slotting in there, but there's going to be a wild card win. And it's not necessarily going to be as wild if SVG wins a road course race or something like that. But there is going to be a wild card win driver, a la Harrison Burton last season. Shout out to Harrison Burton once again. But one of those drivers I could definitely see winning a race. I'm just going to go with the odds here and go with SVG, because plate races, or super speedway races I should say, are so hard to predict. Then I've got the RCR man of Kyle Busch. I actually wanted to put him in as a stone cold lead pipe lock, because last season he had some speed. He had enough equipment to get into the playoffs easily. The DNFs are what hurt him. Let's look at his stats real quick. 0 wins, 5 top 5s, 10 top 10s. 20th in points, and 5 DNFs. The 5 DNFs itself is kind of bad. It wasn't as bad as Josh Berry's 10. Josh Berry's 10 DNFs, of course, were mostly mechanical, not necessarily driver error. Kyle Busch's DNFs came at inopportune moments, though, because he would be running in the top 10 when he overstepped the boundaries of the car, or the limits of the car, what the car could do. And so those 5 DNFs, most of those DNFs, he was actually running in a really good points position, and he could have had easily 15 or 16 top 10s if those situations hadn't occurred. So even though the last 16 are hard to predict because there's so many wild cards, I don't feel like the 8 car is a wild card. I think he solidly makes the round of 16 easily this season. Now we're down to one final spot, and we've got a ton of contenders to get into that spot. For that last spot, I've sort of got 4 names just that I think could get in there, and I'll make a case for each one, starting off with Austin Cindric. I don't think last year was a fluke for Austin Cindric. If you paid attention to his career coming all the way up through, his first few years of Xfinity, it took him a while to get comfortable with the car, but once he got comfortable with the car, you remember those huge 5 and 6 win seasons. I can't remember exactly how many wins he got, but he just did really good after he got comfortable with the car. It seemed like he got more and more comfortable with this car as the last season went on, and I don't think last season him making the playoffs was any type of fluke. One win, obviously, finished 11th in points, 4 top 5s and 7 top 10s. So it would not surprise me at all to see Austin Cindric possibly get that spot, but there are some other drivers that could sort of beat him out for that. One of which being Josh Berry, probably in his best situation yet in the Cup Series. Stewart Haas, when he got to him, it was a dead team. Then they kept pushing on. He's in the 21 car now. He's going to get that Penske equipment. The Wood brothers know what to do with it. I know a lot of people are like, they haven't ran good in years. Well, when Matt DiBenedetto was there, they ran good. When Ryan Blaney was there, they ran good. I think Harrison Burton came up way too early. I think that was the biggest thing. Hopefully he can go back down and work his way back up with AM Racing. But when you put Josh Berry in there, he's sort of at the peak era of his career. I think he's going to get the most out of that equipment, and I think you could easily see him getting that last spot in the playoffs. Then I got Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace, for whatever reason, can't win races in the first half of the season, but when he gets into the playoffs, he always has a good run. He always finishes really, really well once he makes the playoffs. Case in point, although he had 0 wins last season, 6 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and only 3 DNFs, finished 18th in points. The year before that, he finished, I think, either 11th or 10th place in points, if I'm not mistaken. So if he gets into the playoffs, he's good. Unfortunately, he's going to have to win a race early in the season to get into the playoffs because, like I said, the way it's structured now, it's more important to have one win than it is to have a good season. He's been having good seasons. He just hasn't been having the wins to show for him. Also, once again, don't sleep on the court case. That's an outlier. And the last one, I just want to put a group of drivers here because I feel like one of them is about to break out at some point, one way or the other. And we'll start off with Ty Gibbs. At some point, Ty Gibbs is going to get that first win, and from there, I think it's going to break out and it's going to snowball, and he's going to get more and more wins and successful finishes. So I would put Ty Gibbs in there. Also, not for nothing, let's take a look at Carson Hocevar, who I think is a generational talent. Whenever that first win comes, there's going to be a whole lot of wins after that. So Carson Hocevar, I definitely have him on that list as well. And then finally, Front Row Motorsports, go pick a driver over there, whether it's Noah Gragson, Zane Smith, or Pickle Todd Gilliland. One of those drivers I feel like is going to break out. Once again, have to mitigate that with saying there is a lawsuit going on. Will that distract them? Will they lose some focus over there? I don't know. I doubt it. Those guys seem like they are pretty laid back anyway. I don't think any of that's going to bother them. But of all those drivers mentioned for the last spot, if you really had to put me up against it, I would say this. If the last spot goes to somebody who's going to qualify in on points, I would give it to Bubba Wallace. However, if you're going to pick that last spot as somebody who's going to win a race and get their way in there, I'm going to go with either Austin Cindric or Carson Hocevar. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it for that last spot. But those are the picks. We've got those. Now let's go to the final 8 and the final 4. Final 8 is going to be this: Larson, Blaney, Bell, Byron, Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin. Not going to explain anything because I've done so much so far and I feel like this video is going to be super long. So let's just get to the final 4. I've got my final 4 being, of course, Kyle Larson, then either Chase Elliott or William Byron, whoever has the hotter season over there for Hendrick. I'm taking Blaney over Logano because it's an odd year and I don't care if you believe in sorcery and witchcraft or not. It's the way it's gone, so I'm going to go with Blaney over Logano this season. And then finally, the best driver Toyota has on its roster, Christopher Bell, is going to be the other man in the final 4. I also think that we see Carson Hocevar, Ty Gibbs, and possibly Josh Berry. I feel like we got a good chance of seeing those 3 drivers pick up their first win this season. Noah Gragson. I'm going to throw Noah Gragson in there as well. So I think we got a good chance of seeing one of those 4 drivers get a win this season. But all right. That's my preseason predictions. They were kind of tame, but I'm just trying to go by the numbers, trying to do it as logically as possible. And then at the end of the day, this is going to look like terrible, absolute trash in the middle of the season. So it's just the way it goes. All right, that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, God bless you, because it was a really, really long video. All right, got the live stream tonight, Tuesday, 8 o'clock. Peace.